Okay, guys, thank you very much. As you know, we've been kind of
Okay.
on a roll here with the AMBW channel. We've been recently uploading things from everything from couples tags to actual real life AMBW dates I set up over Zoom, and countless interviews and stuff. And so today, happy Hump Day, by the way. But yeah, today to celebrate all the hard work, I feel like we've been honored by someone who I've been following for a little bit, and I've actually been literally been trying to chase down for an interview. You may be familiar with her YouTube channel as well. She has a lot of really interesting content, a lot of great interviews and streams on there and whatnot. So I'm honored to have her on the channel for the very first time. Please welcome Mocha Mommy. And
Hi there.
and yeah, so Mocha Mommy, why don't you? So obviously, I'm familiar with who you are and your work and all that. But for those of but for people who do not know you and who are watching right now, yeah, why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm pretty a new content creator, and I've always been into like mentorship for like young women and young professionals. So I just kind of decided to start putting some of that mentorship onto YouTube. And I think as a young Black woman, sometimes it's hard to find people in your profession or people who are in your community to really help guide you through some of the things. And I just noticed there were some just unfavorable narratives going around social media. So I'm just, trying to help and encourage Black women, young Black women, to kind of change those narratives. And once I started my channel, I mean, it's awesome now seeing my analytics get a little older, but the average Mocha Mommy subscriber is literally like half my age. So
Wow.
there are actually some of my subscribers are actually like the same age as my children. So so I knew that there was a need out there. So I'm just really grateful that people are responding.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like I said, I feel like YouTube. I'm also sort of new to the whole YouTube scene. I actually this channel is I think just like the other day it turned like officially 3 months old. So it's
Right.
so we've literally been here for like a quick minute. But I definitely trying to understand the whole platform better and trying to gain my footing as far as my channel, because originally I started this channel only wanting to do original short films, and then I quickly realized that sort of how YouTube works is that you basically had to keep uploading new content constantly and on a regular basis. Otherwise, your viewers lose interest and the conversation dies down and things sort of go really quiet for your channel, and I didn't want that to happen. So
Right.
that's why I basically started doing these interviews like this, as well as couples tags and all that stuff. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest here. I'm literally the only person who's running my channel. It's just me. It's not like anyone else or anything else. It's literally just me, just one person. So and also I have a life outside the YouTube channel too. I work and all that stuff, my family life. So yeah, I mean it's hard, and I can also imagine because you are married and you have a few, you also have a daughter, and so you have life too. But
Mhm.
but when I checked out your channel, I was really impressed because you were having all these interesting, mature conversations with people. You know what I mean, about a variety of topics and stuff like that, and some about dating, some about mental health, all that stuff. So that's something moving forward
Right.
that yeah. So that's something moving forward that I definitely want for this channel too. I actually want to start live streaming, as well, and sort of add to the list of variety that I provide for this for this whole channel. Um, so yeah, so that's great. So I have a question. So I know that you said, talking earlier with you, you said that you yourself do not have a whole lot of firsthand AMBW experience, but that you got a lot more exposure to it after your daughter started seeing like an Asian man. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So my first AMW exposure actually was through like a singles ministry, like well over 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I was in a part of a faith-based community single ministry, and
Mm.
they introduced me to a man from Hong Kong. They're like, "Oh, well, you're nursing student. He's in pharmacy school. You both have the same background. Let me introduce you guys." And even though he was a really great guy, he just wasn't the right guy. And actually, he ended up marrying a Black woman, actually.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we still keep in touch, actually. And his oldest daughter now is got into a pre-pharmacy program for undergrad. So I think that's really cool, you know.
Yeah,
so even after, you know, even after 20 years, you know, we still kind of maintain like a friendship. You know, he lives in a different time zone, but yeah, I think that's really, you know, that was my first exposure to it through the faith-based community.
Yeah.
And now my 17-year-old daughter, you see, Gen Z is a little different because you can like someone and they can like you and you can go out on dates, but they don't call each other boyfriend and girlfriend. So I don't know exactly how that works. But yeah, this, you know, the boy she's like dating is Filipino.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, yeah, you know, as far as, you know, like the titles and stuff like that, you know, people give each other when they're going out now. I don't know, because I'm, you know, I'm not that older, not, you know, but I'm not like super young either. I'm 34. So, but you know, I mean, like people, I want to say it's like people my age, quote unquote. You know, I mean, we still refer to each other as, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, or, you know, husband, wife, all that stuff. Like you know, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I guess, you know, people who are younger than me are calling each other nowadays, but I still think that should be the norm. But anyway, so yeah, so that's great. So how do you I guess my question would be, again, sort of referring to yeah, I guess I'll ask you about, you know, your daughter and the guy that she's seeing. So have you met his family or his parents yet, or has that happened at all? Or
yes.
Oh, okay.
And
great.
Yeah, and actually there's been like, it turns out, you know, this because his mother is also in healthcare, you know, it's like less than 6 degrees of separation. So like a lot of the people who work with her, I've worked with in the past. So yeah, we have like a lot of mutual colleagues, and yeah, and he's like a really cool kid. Like he's a really nice kid. So you know, it's really funny because, you know, he comes over a lot, and I ask my husband like, oh, do you feel comfortable? And my husband's like, of course I feel comfortable, because now I know where he is and what he's doing, you know?
Yeah.
So he's a really, and he's like a really, and his family, some of them are like really accommodating to it, because I don't think he has had like a lot of social experience. I don't think he's like, I guess maybe the rules of the culture is kind of like they don't like really date much in high school. They don't really encourage their teenage sons to date, I guess. So that was like a barrier we kind of had to get past, like, which is maybe why they don't have a title, maybe, because maybe he's not like a quote unquote allowed to have a girlfriend.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds interesting as well. So okay, so great. So yeah, well, that's wonderful, because, you know, usually yeah, I mean, you know, usually like in those kinds of situations, you know, where parents are meeting each other, especially from, you know, different backgrounds, you know, there might be a little bit of trepidation or, you know, uncertainty or anything like that. But yeah. So I guess like what do you find, you know, because, you know, going back to like the focus of, you know, my own channel, you know, like I said, like I definitely see you commenting a lot and, you know, watching these videos and whatnot. But I just had a question. So what is your, I guess in general, like your general interest in AMBW, aside from, I guess, you know, your own experiences, or, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I definitely think that when it comes to, I guess, interracial dating and interracial marriage, I think young Black women sometimes have a lot of misconceptions about it, preconceived ideas about it, and some of those misconceptions and notions can be really unhealthy. So I think the reason why your channel is so important, and I really encourage Black women to watch your channel, was to not get into like the sensationalism of it, but when you see these couples tags, you see just how quote unquote normal it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like how because the couple that brought me to your channel was Sam Bliss and Sam, the Lines Between the Stars podcast. Yeah, that's what brought me to you. And I just was trying to make a point, like, you know, this is nothing crazy or exotic or extremely out of the ordinary, but it's just two people who have a lot of common interests who are coming together. And yes, they're from different ethnic backgrounds, but at the same time, it's their common interest that binds them, you know. And
Right.
so I just wanted to really emphasize that to Black women. Like, there really is not any kind of smoke and mirrors, anything special you have to do, anything you have to change or give up about yourself, but really just to make sure that you're uniting with people around your common interests.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And yes. Yeah. Thank you for that answer. That was really good. Yeah. I guess in general, I was just wondering, just curious about that. But yeah, that definitely does answer a lot. Um, so like I said, I saw the channel, the video that you made, I guess in response to my channel, sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I saw the fact that you were commenting on a recent interview that I did. With
Right.
V, and so I was just wondering, like,
Yeah.
for me personally, I don't feel any certain way about it at all, but I'm more really
Right.
just curious about why you felt the way that you did, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I really liked it, and I loved how honest he was. You know,
Mhm,
because I think that that honesty is so needed. But
mhm,
I also think one of the mistakes that I feel like sometimes young Black women make is to ascribe certain mindsets and behaviors to certain groups of people. Like, for instance, um, they may think that the oh my gosh, I'm trying to say this, but not being trying to be political. Like, the F boy culture that they experience as
yeah,
African Americans, that's not exclusive to African Americans. You can
right,
find that in any ethnic group. So don't think that just because someone is not African American that they don't have that kind of ideology. And I definitely think that he definitely has some of those, like, F boy kind of tendencies. And there's a phrase that I always say: you can't have a hot boy summer, a F boy fall, and a womanizing winter, and spring into a healthy relationship. So sometimes you'll hear some of those same unhealthy narratives that are red flags.
hmm,
And regardless of the race of guy, you should be aware of those, like, red flags.
right,
Mm-hmm.
okay, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Um, yeah, because I actually just did. I don't know if you saw it, but or actually, no, you did, because I saw you leave another
Yeah.
comment. I saw your
Yeah.
comment on the last interview that I did with V, because I did two interviews. So
Yeah.
I just did one with him a couple days ago. And, I saw you leave a comment on there, and man, like,
Yeah.
you know what I would love to do. I would love to set this up somehow, because and I know I'm sort of doing this during the meeting, but I don't care. Is that I would love to arrange sort of, well, actually not arrange, basically, yeah. So I would like to bring you in on another discussion that I'm having with V, but it's also going to be with the other gentleman that was there as well. And
Right. Yeah.
and so my plan is, and I actually talked with this, this sort of like all of our ideas, like we want to bring in two other women. We want to bring in two women and have them also there. And of course I'll be there too, but have sort of this, round table slash, whatever discussion, no holds bars, about really kind of hot topics. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I would love to bring you in for that. So,
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
interested, yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
we'll do.
I mean, honestly, like, I so appreciate that honesty, because
Mhm.
then women know how to move, you know?
Right.
And again, I know, like, coming from like a faith-based background, I would have
Mhm.
a very different value system than, than the other two men you had on your channel. Right.
Right.
But it's important that you have that conversation, because you need to be aware of that. If this is your value system and then somebody has a different one, maybe
Mhm.
you guys just shouldn't date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then if that person maybe, and really look at for those things that just really look at for those keywords or key behaviors that let you know if someone's value system matches up with yours. And it doesn't mean necessarily that they're a bad person. It just means that they're not the right person for you.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, like, just speaking from personal experience, because I've gone out with, like all kinds of women from, race wise, from all kinds of races, backgrounds, and personalities and stuff like that. I actually also just recently republished a book that it's like the 10th time I'm playing it on my channel. But
Wow.
I've actually written an online a dating guide basically for single Asian guys. And it's based on my experiences with dating and whatnot, and it's all from like the past,
Mhm.
I want to say probably over 10 years now, since 2011. Yeah, so it's been 10 years or so. But I actually recently published that, so it's on Smashwords.com and all these different like Born Barnes and Noble. Actually, we'll put up the link later. But basically, yeah, I mean, I have like a lot of dating experience, and so it's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of dating guides, or a lot of women that are outspoken about dating, and like telling other women, what I mean, what to do, what not to do, what kind of men to go after, what I mean, all that stuff. But I feel like as a guy it's kind of underrated inside of, and sort of overlooked, what I mean, as to how, how a date
Right.
how a guy, not a woman, but how a man should approach dating. And I feel like there are certain
Right.
rules. Feel like there's certain rules, because just as there are bad men out there, there are also, quote unquote bad women out there too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I've had a lot of really rotten experiences with people. You name it, I've done it, and it's probably happened to me at least
Hmm.
once. And I can honestly say that, like I said, I turned 34 a few months ago, but I can honestly say that getting older and hitting 30 a few years ago definitely changed my perspective and opened me up to a whole new world of whole new different subset of women that, in my opinion, were quote unquote real women, because they knew what they
Hmm.
wanted. They knew what they wanted. They were more mature
Right.
about it. They didn't waste time, all that stuff. And so because of that, that's what sort of prompted me to write the book. Is I basically turned my whole love life around. And so that brings me to my
Right.
next topic. So one of your videos, your channel, I'm gonna pull it up right now. One of your videos on your channel is entitled, let's see here, least preferred, no least engaged. Um,
Right.
and why don't you go into what motivated you to basically post that video, and yeah, where you were coming from with that.
Okay. Well, basically, where I was coming from was the OK Cupid study that was
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, I had asked a battle buddy. Well, I can't say battle. A fellow veteran, somebody I had served with in the military, who works for a large corporate dating site, and I had asked him like, what's the reality? What's the deal with it? What's the reality of it? And he's like, well, the reality of online dating and what that study was is that study like kind of omitted and left out a lot. And it was basically based on, since how they presented it to the public was based on sensationalism. So what he was saying is that if you give an African American woman like a 30-day trial on a dating site, rarely are they getting past day 10. Rarely are they doing like any of the algorithm optimization type of techniques that other women do, which is if they don't like a profile, other women will engage with it, even if it's negative engagement. Like even if they block it, delete it, or swipe left or whatever it is, a lot of Black women will just see like, oh, there's nobody good on this, and then just kind of leave, and then it doesn't give the algorithm enough time to learn what they like. The reality is that women are so far outnumbered on these dating sites that they can sometimes get very overwhelmed with what comes at them, especially if they're not very specific in their filters. And then also a lot of dating apps, they try to make it seem like women are very petty and they only want like the top 10%. But reality is a lot of the apps are just prioritizing the men who are on the higher paid tiers. So it's not really like the women are picky, like the apps are feeding you the exact same men because they're paying to be on the site. So it just kind of gives you an idea of like how to basically navigate the machine learning and the algorithm, because it's an algorithm like everything else. Like when you shop on Amazon and they recommend another product for you. So I had actually broken it down with content creator Sam Reed Bliss, who was also on your channel. And we had talked about like the market research and we talked about like the machine learning data points, and two Black girl nerds just kind of getting together talking about how sometimes you may just have to kind of play with the algorithm a little bit more, and sometimes the results you get might be about the profile you put through, because even things like poor photo resolution and like the order in which you put your interests and how you put them and may dictate your matches. So
Right.
just little things like that Black women can do better to just better optimize the algorithm for them, and basically just telling them to really stick with it. It's a process, just like anything else. So and the same thing with Asian men. I mean, just gotta kind of stick with it more than anything else. So because again, it's not perfect, and also it wasn't really built for other outliers of the mainstream culture. So sometimes we do, those of us who are not part of the mainstream culture, we do have to work a little harder to make those apps work for us, because there is like certain algorithm bias that we have to overcome and get around, just because we're not the majority population. So again, those are just like little things that we have to keep into consideration when we're meeting people and engaging online, especially when it comes to online dating.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's very interesting. I never really thought about, how the existence of the algorithm and the effect that it has on dating sites. Like, I mean, I have a lot to say when it comes to online dating. You know, um, but again, like this interview is not about that. So, but yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that is very interesting. Now I want to ask you a question that I was initially going to reserve for the group discussion that we hopefully will do sooner than later. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll just ask you it right now. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel when men complain that women are being too picky, or nowadays that women like you said just want the upper echelon, or they want certain things that are unrealistic, and because of that, what I mean, they might be single, or what I mean, just complaining that there's no real men or no good men out there. Like, what are your thoughts on the thoughts of that? Yeah.
Well, as far as like women being too picky, well, I think that is definitely some like immaturity
Hmm.
that comes in the dating pool that a lot of men like to swim in.
Hmm.
So you know what I mean, and so I definitely feel that that's one thing. Um, and sometimes that gets hard for me to understand. Like, okay, like what do you expect a 22-year-old to do? Like, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, do you expect for them to make the most mature decisions? But again, I mean, sometimes that's one thing. And also too, with like women being too picky, I definitely could see like my sister as being one of those people. My sister is a physician, and she owns her own business. She's like a medical consultant. She works when she wants. She does what she wants. She lives her life very much on her own terms. So if a guy is gonna impress her, he's got to really bring his A game, because she's like, why would I give up all that I have to like wash some guy's drawers and cook his dinner? Like, I'm not. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have to really, because if you think about it, even with me being married for like 19 years, being a wife is hard work. It really is, and that's with a good man. With a good man, it's hard work. Like, just talking to you now, I'm thinking of like, how many chores we have to do, and our kids who have to run to certain activities, and the home you have to maintain. And, once my kids got into high school, I went back into the full-time workforce, and especially being in healthcare around this time was a real challenge. That's a challenge when you have a good man. Can you imagine if you have a guy who maybe doesn't have the most integrity, or maybe doesn't have the strongest work ethic, or maybe who's not as a great of a communicator? That's really hard. So I
Yeah.
think that, with women being able to self-advocate, I think men really if you're complacent in your mediocrity, perhaps right now is not a good time to have a partner. Like, if you're complacent, that maybe, because I think women are very, it's almost socially acceptable for us to be content and single, but I think men sometimes maybe men might have to kind of change that narrative for themselves a little bit. Like, no, I kind of like my life, and maybe I don't really want to, and I know too, like biblically they say, right, it's not good for men to be alone, right? But I mean, I do see like a lot more men saying like, hey, I'm content being single. And I think that we should kind of normalize that.
Well, I mean, okay, that's interesting. So have you heard of this movement? It's called MGTOW.
Yeah,
Okay. So that in itself, I guess, might be, I guess, a little bit more on the leaning toward more the negative side of things. I guess if you want to look at it like that.
Right, exactly.
But what do you are you sort of talking about that, or are you talking about something else? And if you aren't talking about it, then what are your thoughts on it?
Right. Well, I mean, personally, I think that if marriage and family isn't for you, I definitely think that you should definitely put that out there. And I think that's okay. And I think we should normalize that. Mm-hmm. Like, if that's not what a guy wants for himself, I'm in support of that. And I'm support of that guy's honesty with where he is emotionally, spiritually, financially. I'm in support of that, but at the same time, you don't have to bash women because that's your choice,
right.
And if a woman, the same thing, if that's your choice to be single, you don't have to bash men because that's your choice. Like,
right.
My older sister made her decision. Like, she was married and there was infidelity. She got a divorce and said, never again. And I was like, I respect your choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you, okay, well, that's great. But, so let me ask you something. Like you know how, because like you said, society likes to place a sort of a certain negative stigma to, people who are single, especially, if you are of a certain age or past a certain age, then it becomes, like more likely, I guess, that you might be ostracized by other people, for being single or not being married or not having kids or anything like that. You know what I mean? And so what are your, I mean, I guess you sort of kind of did answer this in like a broader sense, but more specifically, like what are your thoughts on, let's see here. I guess, like, okay, so for you personally, so I'm actually going to rephrase this question. So let's say, that you are out with your husband or your whole family, right? And it's like a Saturday night and you guys are just, just having a nice night out. And then you go to the movies and then you see, all these couples, which is very custom because when we go to the movies, it's typically like date night, you go with other people, maybe even with your friends or family. But let's say, let's say that you see, like a guy who's alone, right? And he might be like maybe in his mid to late 40s, maybe even older than that. You know what I mean? He's not married. There's no ring in his finger, no kids, nothing. He's not even there on a date. You know what I mean? What for you? What is the first thing that pops in your mind when you see that person, when you see someone like that? You know what I mean? And like I said, you can pretty much be open about everything. But what is the first thing that comes to mind? You know what I mean? Like when you see that kind of image.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of like coming from the faith background. You can't really judge. We don't really know what that guy has been through and what has made him make that choice. I mean, and I guess too, like, with us having been married, like we just celebrated 19 years.
Oh, wow.
How many of our couple friends are not together anymore? Like, and how sometimes that does change the social dynamics, like, I remember there was that movie with like Vince Vaughn in it. And then the girl says like, oh, he got the friends in the divorce, because they stayed friends with the guy. And then when the girl divorced the guy, they weren't friends with her anymore, and that's happened a lot. And, also too, playing sports with my kids, there's a few, parents that are not together anymore, and they have to kind of navigate that. And again, I don't ever want to be judgmental of those situations. Like maybe they had a good run and it's over, or maybe it just wasn't, they weren't compatible for whatever reason, and they just have to kind of come together for the support of their kids and for the well-being of their kids. So, again, I try not to judge people who have made their own life decisions. I mean, I have enough to deal with. Why would I want to worry about what some other adult is doing with their life? I shouldn't.
Right.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't concern me.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I was asking because for me personally, I'm more of a loner type. So I actually like doing things alone. What I mean, like not only do
Hmm.
I not mind it, I don't mind it, but I actually kind of find the joy in doing certain things alone. Now, does that mean that I always like to be alone? No, that's not necessarily the case. But even in times like that, I don't necessarily need a romantic partner because I have my family,
Hmm.
I have friends. You know what I mean? I even, even when I'm going out by myself, I might just strike up a conversation with the person sitting next to me or the person, in front of me in the line. So I can be both a sociable person and also a loner. But
Hmm.
but it does have me thinking a lot of the times. It's like, what I mean, because like I said, when you go out, it's typically it's you expect to see a lot of couples. You expect to see a lot of married couples or people who are together, boyfriend and girlfriend. You know what I mean? And that's sort of like the normal thing, especially out on the weekends. But it's just I've at the same time in the back of my mind, it's kind of lingering. It's like when I am alone, when I am doing things by myself, and I don't have, anyone else there. It's like, are people thinking, and people might look at me and think, oh, he's alone, or what I mean, he's like weird, or he's like a loser, or what I mean, he has no one in his life. It's like, I mean, I'm not an insecure person, but it does, I will be honest. I say I have gotten comments kind of like that before, and also looks like that before. But at the
Hmm.
same time, what can I do about that? You know what I mean? Like people are gonna think
Right.
what they think, and I don't really give a shit. So
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just like, but again, I'm saying it works both ways. I am happy to have company there. You know what I mean? Whether I'm on a date with a woman or if I'm just there by myself or I'm there with my friends or family, I don't really care. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
for me personally, I feel like in general, I feel like the best dating partner experiences are the ones that happen on their own. Just
Right.
naturally. You know what I mean? Like literally, just like
I
naturally, with
agree.
no interference, without me having to go online and excuse me, and fill out one of these, online dating profiles and answer hundreds of questions and all this stuff. And I mean, it's just like, because yeah, I have like my more memorable experiences have just literally happened on their own. Which
Oh,
brings
I
me,
agree.
yeah, which brings sorry, which brings me to my next question. Um, what is your, I guess, advice to people who are thinking to themselves, okay, like I'm at a point in my life right now where I'm ready to look for something serious. Would you say, hey, wait for it, literally just wait for that person, just do nothing and literally wait for the circumstances to arise where you meet someone on accident? Or would you say just take a more proactive approach and go online, fill a profile out and see who you meet on there? Like what would your advice be?
I definitely say, I know in my video I kind of talked about online dating is a lot like Little League.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it doesn't always lead to a World Series, right?
No.
So I think that sometimes, it's not always about celebration, champagne, and rings. So sometimes, one of the things that I've been starting to notice is how many young Black women are very socially insular. And it's
Mm,
not a healthy, I'm content with being alone. It's I'm alone because I'm afraid. I'm
mm,
alone because I fear for my physical and emotional safety because of the circumstances I grew up in.
mm,
That's what's unhealthy.
mm,
So when I encourage Black women for online dating is to really just start up conversation and
mhm,
then create healthy boundaries to socialize in so that you are more comfortable when you go to, that conference or that school function or to join, that social organization.
right.
Because I just think that it has to start somewhere. And I just know that that's a challenge. I know it's not only unique to Black women, but I know that Black women for a fact are really struggling with that. Their fear is dominating their lack of engagement in the dating world. And I really want to combat that. And I think that online dating, even if you don't ever meet up with a person, just having different conversations can just make me a step in the right direction to really help you. I'm thinking about the little boy that my daughter is seeing, right? Well, I can't say little boy, he's 17, but the young man that my daughter is seeing. Again, he was also too. My daughter is, I love her so much, but she started talking at 4 months old and hasn't stopped since.
Okay.
So she's talkative and she's outgoing and she's funny and she's great with language. And this guy is not. He's so reserved and really quiet. And it's been kind of fun seeing him come out of his shell. And I'm so grateful that she started, that they had something that in common that they started talking about. And then they became like really good, and then they became like, entered into a partnership based on that common interest, because they found that they had way more in common. So I was so, and again, that's why I just want to encourage, more Black women to not let those painful experiences, they don't have to dictate the rest of your life. And although those things are so valid and that they're, those things are of a real concern. And then when you do go out in the dating world, you're overly guarded, you're overly suspicious of people. I just don't want that to happen either. I just don't want Black women to be paralyzed by that fear.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. That's a very, that definitely touches upon a lot of sensitive areas and stuff. But that's good though, because I definitely think that, like a lot of people, especially, viewers on my channel, they need to hear that. And I mean, yeah, just in general, dating is tough. Even with all the, experience that I have under my belt and all the lessons that I've learned and things that I've learned about myself and other people, it's never easy, no matter what. It's just, it is so, it's very interesting. I don't know if you saw one of the earlier videos that I put on my channel, but I actually interviewed a dating coach. Coach Julie Wadley, and she caters mostly to Black women, and it was and it was great having her on my channel. I would actually in the future, I'd love to bring her back on, but she basically, everything that she was telling me, I was asking her all these questions, and she is a very intelligent and very eloquent person. You know what I mean? And it was a joy to hear from her. But a lot of also the things that I heard from her were things that I had also experienced myself. And that got me a lot more interested in speaking with her and getting, picking her brain for all this stuff. Because, basically a lot what, she's been saying, and also you've been saying, is that dating is basically, the most unpredictable storm ever. You know what I mean? It's very, nothing is in your control. And, things, you want things to work out, but even the slightest, smallest thing that you don't see coming or that you take for granted or overlook or whatever could mess everything up. And you could get a text or a call or a message or whatever from the person the next day saying, hey, sorry, I don't think it's going to work out, or, I'm just not ready to date and all this stuff. And it's just, it's heartbreaking.
Right.
You know what I mean? It makes a person not want to try. Really, it makes a person not want to try it. So I think as much as like what you're saying, you know what I mean? People should not be afraid, and people should, give themselves a chance, you know what I mean, to find love or whatever. It is hard. It's hard. It's very, 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 very hard. It is not like the same thing as working on yourself. And I think that's my next point, is that people always tell you, oh, I'm going to work on myself, or you should work on yourself. And after that, you'll find someone. Honestly, that's a bunch of effing bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm cursing. I'm sorry cursing, but let me tell you why.
Right.
I feel like those two things should not be conjoined to each other. I feel like working on yourself and finding someone who you have no control over should not go together, because you have all the control over your own impulses and thoughts and whatnot yourself. That's fine. You can work out, you can go to the gym, you can, look for a better job if you don't like the one you have. You can go back to school. You can, you know what I mean? Just get your health back on. So you can work on yourself. You know what I mean? But you can't work on other people. You can't focus on other, you can't control other people. So what good is it if you're working on yourself and you get out there and you're a brand new person, with like the biggest smile on your face and you're ready to take on the world again, and then the same shit happens again. And then what do you hear again? Well, sorry, it's not me, it's you. But you know what? You should work on yourself. I mean, it's like you're stuck in it. It's like you're stuck in a loop. You know what I mean? It's like that movie Groundhog's
Right.
Day. It's like that movie Groundhog's Day,
Right.
where it's the same shit every day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Except in real life, there is no happy ending. Not always. You know, and that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever said that before. But yeah, I think people should abolish, or at least just disregard the phrase "work on yourself" and not associate it with dating. Because even if you work on yourself, there's no guarantee that it'll work out. You know what I mean? There isn't.
That's very
And
true.
and
That's very
and
true.
yeah. And again, I guess you could also say, okay, well, you know what, self-love is important. What about that? Yeah, self-love is great. But you know what? Babies love themselves, toddlers love themselves. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that they're out there dating other people. Like, loving yourself, again, what the hell does that have to do with dating someone else? Because again, you can't control them. You can love yourself 10 times over. You could be the most self-love person in the whole world, right? You could have your whole life together and have worked on everything and love yourself from here till eternity and back. But does that mean that it's going to work out? Does that get you a girlfriend? Does that get you a boyfriend? Does that mean that you're going to find someone and you guys are going to get hitched in a year or whatever and have babies? No. So, you know what I mean? I know that sounds negative, and I apologize if it really does sound overly negative, but I feel like that is actually a very good point to make, is that
Right.
we have no control over anything. And that in itself should be the number one thing that is said out loud. Not you should work on yourself, not you should love yourself, because those things you have control over. But
Mm-hmm.
just imagine how easier and smooth, much more smooth dating would be if we just everyone admitted to themselves that this is crazy. This is a crazy situation, but we're trying to give it a chance, trying to give each other a chance, but it is outside of our control. That sounds a lot more negative. That sounds a lot more turned off. And I feel like a lot of people would be turned off by that. But at the same time, I think in the long run, I think that actually might be a more truthful and honest statement than telling someone to basically politely F off and work on themselves just so that they can go through
Right.
the same shit again with another person. And
Yeah.
so I guess having said that, I'm sorry, I know I ramble on, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, personally, I think that working on yourself doesn't guarantee a successful relationship. That's
Right.
true. But at the same time, it definitely can help if you're working on yourself for yourself, not for the sake of another relationship. Like, I remember constantly being told that I was a tomboy and that I should be more ladylike. And my mom would put me in like these cotillions and take me to these teas, and I had to learn to curtsy, and I had to, because I was so much of a tomboy. But then I found someone who absolutely loved my tomboyness. You know what I mean? He loved that. You know what I mean? It was so crazy, like the conversations that we would have, because I was, I grew up in Queens, New York. And so
Okay.
that meant I was a diehard Mets fan. Yeah, I was a diehard Mets fan. And if you know anything about Mets baseball, we are not one of the best. We're good this season, and we were good in 2015. But it was a long stretch where we were not good, And I remember saying something to my now husband about like, I'm being told that I'm too much of a tomboy, right, to ever get a partner. But I remember telling him, I remember seeing his jersey. I was like, oh, this is the same number as Darryl Strawberry. And he's like, oh, Darryl Strawberry. I'm like, man, I'm the diehard Mets fan. And he said he walked away knowing that I was probably the most loyal woman in the world, because to be a fan of a team who had done so poorly in like 30 years, you know what I mean? I had to be a really loyal woman. So it just goes to show you, like, if I would have taken that advice to be, quote unquote, more ladylike, then maybe I would have missed out on the best opportunity in my life, So again, that's why I really, want more Black women to, really write their own story and do what you want to do for you. Like, if you want to take that trip or to learn that new language or to do that, totally do it, because you just never know. Like, work on you for you. And it's so funny because, Sam Marie, she broke like all the rules that they give you for dating, right? She approached the guy first.
Yeah.
And then she met him at a place where the date was free. This
Mm.
thing that everyone tells you to not do. So then look where she ended up. She's with a guy who she has a ton in common with. And he cooks. My husband does not cook. You know what I mean? I'm like, how did you score that? You know? And again, I think a lot of it has to do with his culture, but you know, like you know, and the same thing, my oldest daughter, I love her so much. But, you know, she's definitely off the beaten path. You know what I mean? Like what color her hair is right now, how she dresses. I mean, I call her style homeless girl chic. like the way she dresses. But apparently this guy, he dresses the same way. And his hair is orange. Her hair is, you know, like I don't know, like a jade green, like a jade. Oh, and wow. They're like together. Yeah. Like they're together playing me-topia. Like, you know what I mean? Loving it. You know what I mean? Like everything that they say you're not supposed to do, they did it. And, you know,
right.
Hanging out and being just hanging out and having fun.
Right.
You know, you know what I mean? I mean, how many times were we told like, oh, be a lady, you know, don't whatever. Man, they'll be on like the Xbox with their headset on, and she'll be eating chips like in his ear. Like, and I was told growing up that's very rude, that's unladylike. But apparently, you put the headphones on, and he's eating chips in her ear.
Oh.
But that's their relationship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's very interesting. That actually kind of reminds me of that Will Smith movie that came out a long time ago. It was called Hitch. And I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, it's basically it kind of reminds you of what happens in that movie, because you know in that movie he also plays a dating coach, and one of his clients, I guess his main client in the film, he does everything the opposite of what he's told to do. You know, everything that Will Smith's character told him to do, he didn't do, and it actually works out for him. So yeah, that definitely sounds a lot like that. It's like, you know, it kind of begs the question, it's like, what good are rules if people aren't following them and they're working out anyway? You know what I mean? Like who are we setting these rules for? You know what I mean? Are they for ourselves, or do we think that, you know, it'll work for someone else? You know what I mean? It's very, I guess, you know, as chaotic and unpredictable as dating is, that's sort of one of the silver linings in it. You know what I mean? Is that, you know, things can happen, like things, you know what I mean, like beautiful, we call it like a quote unquote beautiful accident. You know what I mean? Things happen on their own, you know what I mean, unplanned, and they shouldn't happen, shouldn't work, but they do. And you know, so yeah, so that's great. That's wonderful to hear. I mean, honestly, you know, yeah, if hey, you know what I mean, honestly, who cares if there's less people out there buying dating books and less people, you know, watching Dr. Phil or Oprah or whatever, hoping to get love advice. You know, whatever works for you works for you, you know. So that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And on that note, on the colored hair thing, I can relate, because my hair is currently jet black, but usually, you know, even in my 30s, like I like dyeing my hair a lot of different colors, and so that's awesome. I think that's great. I think that's a lot of fun. But okay. So I've got only a couple more questions, because I'll let you go, because I know it might be getting a little bit later where you are, but so yeah, I guess, like, what are you, you know, because again, I'm sort of looking through your channel here, but let's say like a year or two, you know, from now, like, what goals are you hoping to accomplish with your channel? Like, you know, in what ways do you want to see it grow and, you know, expand, and you know what I mean? Like, what are your main objectives, I guess, you know, in the long term?
Well, my main objective, I guess, is to really kind of honor like the tradition that my family has started with, just teaching Black women that it's okay to chart your own path. And I know that there's a lot of societal forces that really want to put us in boxes and you know, paint a certain narrative about us. But it's okay to totally be who it is that you are, and you know, and to love who it is you want to love. And I'm so proud of the Black women who have charted their own paths and what they've left behind. Like, I mean, I know one of my biggest influencers was definitely like Lauryn Hill and Missy Elliott.
Oh, yeah,
you know, India Arie, you know, growing up in the 90s, like, yeah, I love the fact that they were they dressed the way they wanted, they wore their hair the way they wanted, they made the music that they wanted, and they were just unapologetically themselves. And so that's what I just want for more young Black women, to just be unapologetically yourself, and then to create a support system for Black women to do that. And no matter what that looks like, no matter what that looks like. And I know that me having a faith background, a traditional Christian faith background, and then there are people who don't, but they can still come together and support one another. You know, when I did my like Black women in STEM, I made it a point to have one person who took a traditional route and then another person who took that route as an adult, because I think that they all had so much to add, you know, to the conversation about a place where we're so underrepresented. And this is how we can support each other, you know. And, you know, there's going to be some more, you know, talks about like anger management, because I think that sometimes we get put in a box, like when Black women get angry, it has to look this way. Well, no, let's talk about positive conflict resolution, and let's talk about positive ways that we can create outlets for our anger that doesn't always have to look a certain way.
Right.
Because so many times we're afraid to be perceived a certain way. So sometimes we let offenses go unreconciled. Well, we're afraid of being the angry Black woman. But hey, you've been offended. Let's find healthier language to make sure that we can set up those healthy boundaries and have those healthy conversations. And also, hey, you're right, you should be angry at this, but let's find a healthy way to process that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. You know, especially, you know, as a well, I guess currently, yeah, I am literally single, but yeah, as a single Asian male, there is a lot of negative, you know, stigma and stereotypes and whatnot attached to me as well. I mean, honestly, I don't give a f about that. You know what I mean? I let that. I don't care. You know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, I do agree with you that, you know, people should, you know, be encouraged to, you know, embrace who they are and, you know, move forward in their pursuit of, you know, happiness and love. You know what I mean? Because I think in the end, you know, I haven't felt, you know, real romantic love for another human being, you know, except for like maybe one time. But I know that that feeling is worth pursuing. It's definitely worth pursuing. It's a great
Right.
feeling. All right,
You
well,
know, that's why
yeah.
I'm so glad you put your channel out, because I didn't really know that that was something you got, that Asian men struggled with. Like, because I had no idea that that was a struggle, because I guess also too, being a huge Major League Baseball fan, I never thought that there was like a struggle of your views of masculinity. Like, I never thought that, you know, especially growing up at a time like when, you know, like Matsui and Ichiro and, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I never thought that you guys had, that Asian men had like poor perception, you know.
Yeah.
But again, that was just from a very, very small part of the community. You know, like, and I'm so grateful that so many men were honest about their stories. And you know, when Sam and Samri on their podcast, Sam was kind of talking about how as a young man, he was very discouraged from dating, very discouraged from kind of hanging out late with his friends, or having girls call the house. And it made me, you know, be more cognizant of the challenges that my daughter's, you know, partner he has, because yeah, he does have a lot more boundaries than some of the other teenagers his age. So yeah, I mean, it just made me like really have compassion for what other people are going through. And so I'm so glad that you put that stuff out there, that you put that narrative out there, so that people can have compassion on that situation and realize that, you know, maybe it might be worth it to initiate that conversation. Like, if you see that guy in the Naruto jacket, or you see that guy with the My Hero Academia patch on his backpack, then it might be okay to initiate that conversation, because maybe socially it's not acceptable, like, or maybe like less acceptable for him to like engage in frivolous things, like, you know what I mean? Because I know his mom does kind of get on him a little bit, like, oh, that's not important, or that's not, but it's important to him, you know. So maybe it's okay to go out and initiate that conversation, and go out and seek those common bonds, to just go and talk to people, because, you know, you never know what could happen.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, that's a great statement to end this interview on. But I also just want to add to that. You know, a lot of what I've encountered and what I've experienced is that a lot of dating is a lot of talking, but it's not a whole lot of doing. Like a lot, like people say, you know, these
Mhm.
kinds of things that you've been saying, you know, when you're out with them. I've literally had like some women tell me the same stuff that you're telling me. You know, the oh, you know, they believe in this and all this stuff, and they're trying to be this kind of, you know, do this differently and be this kind of person. A lot of it's bullshit. I mean, I'm not saying what you're saying is bullshit,
Mhm.
but I'm saying it becomes bullshit because it's not acted upon, because nobody actually does it. You know what I mean?
Does what?
No, I mean like a lot of people do not, you know, they don't practice the things that you're saying. You know what I mean? Like they're saying
Like, what do you
things.
mean?
Well, what am I trying to say? I guess that a lot of people they stop themselves from pursuing someone because they're unsure of someone, whether they're unsure of
Okay.
themselves or of other people. You know what I mean? And it might be because of a misconception. It might be because of, you know, a bad experience with somebody of the same race, or because, you know, like one of the girlfriends told them not to. You know what I mean? Or because they saw this in even in, you know, like the media, which is a common scapegoat. But
Right.
you know, at the same time, yeah, I mean, and I think that's a big problem, especially with young people. And obviously, you know, this doesn't apply to you and your family. You know what I mean? Especially with, you know, your daughter and her boyfriend. But I'm saying in general with a lot of young people, and you know, younger people my age too. Like people just, what am I trying to say? They tend to play it safe. You know what I mean? They play it
Mm.
safe. They play it safe because they're not sure. They're not sure of the other person.
Right.
And in my experience, uncertainty kills a lot of the good vibes and a lot of the energy and a lot of the enthusiasm that you might otherwise have for another person. You know, and
Right. Yeah.
honestly, and yeah, but you know what? I don't want like I kind of I could go on forever about this, but I won't, because
Mhm.
I want to let you get back to your life. But I do appreciate you for taking the time to speak with us today, or speak with me today. You know, and I'm, like I said, an avid fan of your channel. I am definitely subscribed to it. So I
Thank
will
you.
definitely look forward. Yeah, definitely look forward to all the other future content you put out. And like I said, you know, this, I don't want this to be, you know, the last of our collaborations. I definitely am gonna invite you to, you know, to basically collaborate and speak on the discussion panel that I'm trying to set up with
Mhm.
Fee and what's his name? Shaolin. You know,
Yeah.
the other guy who was there the other day. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be us four, but it'll also be another woman. So we were hoping, we were looking to get that set up soon.
Okay.
So more on that. We'll talk about that offline. But yeah. So again, I want to
Okay.
thank you very much. And Mocha Mommy, I know where to find you. But
Great.
where can other people find you?
Oh, well, my channel is Mocha Mommy on YouTube, and all my contact information's under there. So that's definitely like and subscribe, because I look forward to just helping, just, you know, make a supportive environment for, you know, young Black women to just thrive and just to be themselves. And I
Right.
know that there's a lot of advocacy out there from all kinds of people.
Right, absolutely. Well, guys, yeah, and you know, like I said, I will also post the link to your channel in the description for this video. And again, I want to thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Like I said, it's I this is a long time coming, because I actually I really wanted to interview you for a while. I know we do a lot of interviews on this channel, but you're definitely one that I was looking forward to a lot. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and yeah, signing off. Like, you know, guys, if you know, hopefully, you know, you made it to like the end of this video, you watch the whole thing. Please do watch the whole thing. But you know, also, yeah, if you like what you saw or heard today, then please like, comment, subscribe if you're not already. And also, you know, for her channel as well. And I hope you're having a good day. So yeah, we will see you on the next video. Bye bye.